Hello everyone and welcome to a reading wrap-up. This one is for a readathon that could take place basically until I am finished with it, and I have finished. So this could have gone all of 2024, and it just so happens the books that I picked up until this point, the day of filming is February 24th, I have completed it. Now there were only 12 prompts, but I did complete this. So this was hosted by Tilted Kettle Book Club, which is found on Discord. So I will try to link the Discord channel in the description box. And there were 12 prompts. This was called Passing the Time. So I'll tell you what the prompt was, what book I used to fulfill it, and just a little bit more information as far as like the stars. If it was an ebook, I'll let you know, obviously, and how many pages. I'm not going to go into too much depth with what these are. If I can think of something right off the top of my head, I'll tell you. So yeah, now before I get into it, please let me know what you think of the lighting. I found my separate ring light, and so I have that off to the side. I did have someone comment that the light on my glasses from the ring light where my camera is a bit distracting, and I completely agree with that, and I was frustrated thinking, because I couldn't find my ring light. I couldn't remember what closet in my house I put it in. And so I was thinking I was going to have to buy contacts. The last time I did contacts, I had an allergic reaction to them. And it's like, oh, do I want to do that? Or do I want to fork over the money for another ring light? Or whatever the case is. But I found it, so let me know. So the lighting is obviously different because it's not straight on. So prompt number 1 is to read something outside of your normal format. For example, if you read physical, maybe try an ebook or an audiobook. If you normally read novels, maybe try a graphic novel or manga. Or if you normally read graphic novels or mangas, try a novel. That type of situation. So I'm going to move over here because this one I read was an ebook. And this one was for a book club, and this book was just not my thing. It was supposed to be a horror, and I felt like it was lacking in the horror department. I felt like it was trying to go there, but just fell kind of short. So I ended up giving it a 2-star. I could see the potential, but for me, it just wasn't quite there. This book, and that's just me personally, and I know other people thought more highly of it and stuff, but just not quite for me. I read Mosaic, and I normally read physical books, and so this is an ebook. I read much less ebooks. Like, I'm lucky if I read 2, at the most 3 a month. I am trying to increase that, but a lot less compared to my physical books. So Mosaic. This was written by McCarthy, was a short, or I should say novella, because short stories are shorter in length than novellas are. So Mosaic by McCarthy was 140 pages for the ebook. Again, only gave it 2 stars. Could see the potential, but it just fell a little short for me. It sounded, to me, this is a situation where the synopsis sounded better than the execution. But again, I could definitely see the potential. You have this woman who fixes stained glass windows. She gets called to do a job at a church to repair a stained glass window at a church. And she starts to investigate into this window as far as who is portrayed or what religious organization was a part of the church. And as she uncovers more stuff, she starts to experience things with her senses as far as like smell and maybe tasting certain things that aren't there when she's not eating and stuff. But yeah, so anyway, yep, so that was Mosaic. Prompt number 2 was to read something outside your normal genre or subgenre. I read fiction. I consider nonfiction to be a genre in and of itself. So, and here's the other thing. Humor is considered a genre or a subgenre. So I do consider like humor, I consider that mostly a subgenre because I don't see that pop up a lot. So that could be a genre. If you consider that a main genre, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I don't read a lot of humor books. I read fantasy, horror, mystery, thriller, romance. I read just about everything, but horror just does not pop up a lot. Very rarely do I get something that is, or not horror, humor. Straight up humor. And this is classified as humor. This is a nonfiction. But anyway, regardless, I went with Oddball by Sarah Andersen. This is a 105 pages. This is book number 4 in the Sarah Scribbles collection, and it is the final book, at least so far. I have not heard if there's going to be a 5th one out or not. I hope so. I would love for there to be more. I do follow this author on Instagram, and sometimes she'll put something out that wasn't in any of the Oddball collections, but it's the same kind of character here that we're seeing on this page. So I would love to see another compilation and there be another Sarah Scribbles number 5, but who knows? Only time will tell, right? So yes, I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Absolutely love this. Sarah Andersen is one of my favorite nonfiction artists because so far everything that I've seen from her has been graphic novels. She also did, although she did Fangs, and that was a fiction, so because that was about a werewolf and that. So yeah, 5 stars, 105 pages. All right, prompt number 3 was to read something you keep putting off. For this one, I decided to go with Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Now, Mira Grant is a pen name for Seanan McGuire. So the first book series collection that comes to mind with Seanan McGuire that she's real popular for is the Wayward Children series. Not quite my cup of tea. I think that was more heavily magical realism, which that tends to be very hit or miss with me. I'm willing to try it again under Sarah Andersen, but what I have read under Mira Grant, I've absolutely loved, because under Mira Grant, at least what I have read so far, which is a total of 6 books. This is the 6th one I've read under Mira Grant. They've all been science fiction horror, and I've absolutely loved that one. So the other 5 books were part of the Newsflesh series, and one is a collection of novellas. So that's why there's 5, but because I say 5 because one's just a bind up of all the novellas. So I love the writing under Mira Grant. This, I think I kept putting off. For one of my phobias is the sea. I love the sea. I respect the sea. It is beautiful, but I want nothing to do with going to the sea and swimming. I love the sound of this ocean hitting the wave, you know, the waves breaking and all that. Love that sound. I like the salty smell. But I want nothing to do with what's inside of the ocean. So that is one of my fears, and I believe it's called thalassophobia. Even with rivers and lakes, if I cannot see the bottom, I'm out. No. So I will never do a cruise. At least I say never. It would take a lot to get me on a cruise, but as of right now, never. I never would do a cruise, just because of the fears of what I can't see, of what's unknown in the depths below. And this is a mermaid science fiction horror book. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, 438 pages of awesomeness, of barbaric, flesh man-eating, mermaid-type creatures. You have autism representation in this. You have deaf representation in this. You have racial diversity in this. Mira Grant does a really good job of, with her stories of them being diverse as far as disabilities and race and things like that, like beliefs and stuff, but making it natural, like nothing's being shoved in your face, in my opinion. It's just kind of very natural. You go out in the world, although people do try to shove their opinions in your face sometimes, but this one's just kind of that people can have differing opinions and experiences in life and still get along and find true love. You also have LGBT rep in this. One, I think, I don't know if she's straight up like lesbian. It doesn't say her sexual preferences. It's just that she's only dated other women, and the other one did date men, so I don't know if it was like dating men as a facade or if she is bi type of a situation. I don't know. It doesn't say, and it doesn't matter. It's just a part of life, a part of who they are, and in this situation it comes up because they both end up being attracted to each other, and that's pretty much it. It feels natural. and authentic type of a situation. I love the writing under Mira. So, Into the Drowning Deep. Prompt number 4 is to read something that was translated from another language. This was, I have found so far, up to this point, again, February 24th, I've read 4 or 5 books that have been translated. One was translated from Spanish. The rest are translated from Japanese. So I don't know. I guess I gravitate more towards Japanese translation than other translations, which I am finding that very interesting. So anyway, I did go with a book translated from Japanese, and this is a manga, and it's a horror manga. This one is censored by Junji Ito. I gave this one 3 stars. It's not my favorite Junji Ito work. I have preferred the other ones. This one, again, I thought could have gone darker, but at the same time, it's like I think the evil could have been represented more evil than it was. The light or the goodness and humanity side was fine. I felt like the evil could have just been a bit more evil. So, yeah. But censored by Junji Ito. Again, it's a horror manga, so 234 pages. I really don't want to say much going into this. Again, it's just good versus evil, heaven versus hell, God versus the devil, that type of a situation. And there are some fantastical elements, like these little fibers shooting out from a volcano, and then these people can be all-seeing type of a thing, and then they start to think that they're God when they're really not, in this whole good versus evil thing. So that's all I can say without entering into spoiler territory, but it was still a fun read. Prompt number 5 was to read something that takes place not in your country. And for this one, I went with the January selection for the Autism Reads, which is a Discord read-along that I host where we read a book every month by an autistic author. And the selection was an adult read for January, and that was A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibbert. Talia Hibbert, this is definitely one that's not as well talked about. The Brown Sisters trilogy is one that is definitely well talked about, and I would say much more widely known than this one. And this is book number 1 in the Ravenswood book. I believe there is a prequel to this. There is a novella. It takes place either right before this one or right after it. I have to double check, but there is a novella, either one or the two. And then I do have book number 2 up ready to go. This one was actually a reread for me. I had a great time with this one. Talia Hibbert is autistic. The main female lead in this book was autistic as well. This is a mixed race romance. She's black, he's white. He's ex-military. She's painted as the town harlot or the town slut type of a thing. Due to a rumor, there's an ex who is very jealous, almost to the point of stalker, but not quite over that threshold yet. So, yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This takes place in England. I live in the United States, so this is definitely not my own country. 285 pages, and I definitely look forward to continuing this series. Prompt number 6 is to read one of the oldest books off of your TBR. Now, this one could be taken a couple of different ways. The longest book that you have owned, or maybe one of the oldest books purchased or published. And that's what I went with, is published as far as the oldest. The book that I read for this was published in 1854. So I have just a small handful of books that are published about in the 1800s. So this is the typical, as far as like the classics that I own. There's a couple others that I own, but I just haven't been in the mood to pick those ones up. So this is definitely one of the oldest books off of my TBR. It's a new acquisition, but it is oldest as far as publication, or one of the oldest ones. So this one was an ebook, and it is Hard Times by Charles Dickens. I am finding I do like Charles Dickens' writing. However, I will say this book, Hard Times, I liked better than A Christmas Carol. So, I don't know. I think this was a little bit longer It is 326 pages, and I don't remember how long A Christmas Carol is, but I think my problem with A Christmas Carol is there's so many movie adaptations that I've seen that I absolutely love, that reading it was kind of lackluster and boring, but where this one was more new, it was more enticing and enthralling and kept me engaged a lot more than A Christmas Carol did. So take with that what you will, but I liked it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This one also takes place in England, and basically there's this school, and the adults want to make sure the children think logically, that there is no imagination, no creative thinking, things like that. It's very black and white, cut and dry. So it's like you stick to the facts and you never think outside of the box type of a situation. Everything's cut and dry, and that's what they're trying to raise their children to be. And as the book goes on, these adults that were teaching these children start to realize it probably wasn't the best thing to do. So there are consequences for thinking like that. Anyway, all of the time. Now, if you naturally think like that, that's one thing, but to force a child to not develop their imagination, creativity, when they're maybe leaning towards that, or I don't know, trying to stifle that and kind of force them to think certain ways, there were consequences. I hope that kind of makes sense, but that can be a whole different discussion on other stuff. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next prompt. Number 7 was to read one of the newest books added to your TBR pile. One of the newest books added was for a book club read along, and the selection, and this was hosted by, I want to say Zach, but the channel is Rye Reads. And the book selection for January, that's right, I'm looking off to the side at February's book. This one was January's selection, and that is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. Now, I tried No Exit by Taylor Adams. Wasn't for me. Now, I think, one, I wasn't in the right place for it. Like, the right frame of mind. Because sometimes you'll pick up a book and it's just, you might not like it, but you try the same author later on and you enjoy the writing. Plus, just because you enjoy an author's writing with one book doesn't mean you're going to enjoy all of their books. So I do want to give No Exit another shot. I think my other problem with No Exit is that I tried listening to the audiobook while reading it, and there were enough differences as far as certain sentences added and others omitted, and grammatical changes and a bunch of stuff. It was too jarring. And so I think with No Exit, it would have to be either listen to it or physically read it. One or the other. Now this one was perfectly fine to listen along while reading. Or did I not risk it? I don't know. I listened to a lot of audiobooks and I didn't notate which ones I did audiobook or not. But I want to say this one was fine. Anyway, but either way, I enjoyed this one. The writing I thought was pretty good. It was simple but not too simple, but it was not overly complicated in the way that it's like not overly floral and poetic and not a lot of description, if that makes sense. It's very much kind of to the point with a few little embellishes to kind of help set the scene and dynamic and tone, which that I greatly appreciated and liked. This one we're following Emma. She has left Utah to go and house sit because there's a situation that happened with her family in Utah. So she's gone to house sit for a lady in Washington, and this is on the coast of a body of water, so like the sea or something. And she takes her dog with her, house sits. She gets recommended a book to read, gives it like a 1-star review and a rating and a bad review. You're entitled, there's a difference between leaving a bad review to say, like, this wasn't for me, or I found a lot of grammatical errors, or there was a lot of, like, there wasn't anything to indicate maybe that it has explicit sex when it really does, you know, or things like that. It's another to say, to just be mean and almost like a bully. So you kind of have to you're trying to figure out which way the author went, or was it a combination of the two, or not the author, Emma, who's left the review, and how the author took it. because certain things are up to interpretation as well, especially when it's over written format instead of face-to-face, where you can try to decipher facial expressions. I know for some people that is hard, like myself, but you can, when you're talking either in person, you can kind of try to see the whole body language and the situation. It's a little easier to try to pick up what someone's saying rather than like if you're only talking to them over the phone or via text or email, where you're having a lot of social cues eliminated. It's still really difficult at times in person, but I would say it's easier than trying to decipher over text or written word. So anyway, so things start to happen. Her life is at risk and in danger, as well as the life of her dog. So do be aware there is attempted murder of the dog, animal abuse, torture type of a thing. So do definitely be aware of that. There's also a lot of talk of suicidal ideation and thoughts and feelings. So I had a great time. I flew right through this. I was hooked once things started to hit the fan, and I didn't want to put it down. So I enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. Oh, and it was 337 pages. Prompt number 8 was to read a friend's favorite. And I've had a couple of people throughout my life recommend this particular book. And that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is my second book by Agatha Christie. The one that my mom recommended was The Murder on the Orient Express. I'm not going to say what friend recommended this because they are not social media type people. So I want to keep them kind of out of things as much as possible because they would not be comfortable with me sharing anything. But this one was one of their favorites, and I have to agree, I liked this better than Murder on the Orient Express. So again, I've only read 2 Agatha Christie's, this one being one of them, Murder on the Orient Express being the other. But Murder on the Orient Express could maybe also have been not the right time to read it in my life. I do know that I was trying to read that before going to see the movie adaptation with my mom, so I didn't feel in the mood to read it, but yet I forced myself to read it. It was fine. So I think because I was more in the mood, this was a heck of a lot better. So I do want to give the other one a try again. But so this one, we're following 10 people. They go to this island called Soldier Island, and then people start to die off one by one, and you're trying to figure out with the other people on the island if one of this group of people is a murderer, or if the murderer has a really good hiding spot on the island that they can't find, which is definitely possible because you never know if there's secret passages in some place. So, but yeah, I ended up giving this one 5 stars, and it was 300 pages. So a great time, great 300 pages. Prompt number 9 is to read a book club member's favorite. This one I have seen recommended before in a couple of different book club books. And then I also asked for a recommendation from the creators of the Discord group, and this one was recommended as well. So I am taking it also as a recommendation, but I also do know that it is some people, this is their favorite book as well. So, and I'm going to have to agree, this was a great book. And I read Gothikana by RuNyx. It is dark. This is a dark romance. It is sexually explicit. This takes place, I would say, dark academia type. This does take place at a college where you have these people that did not have the great start to life, whether it's abandonment, abuse, going around from foster home to foster home. They get these grants or scholarships to go to this particular school. So all of the students are in the same type of situation where they didn't have a great upbringing. And so this is to try to help them get the education that they will need to kind of self-correct the course of their life the best that they can. Granted, there are situations out of people's controls, but to control what part of their life they can to get on the path of a better life type of a thing. That is the goal of the scholarship and the grants. So it is dark, again, sexually explicit. You do have talk of witchcraft, and you have reflections on the past, how there would be these people that would get someone and make sacrifices. So sacrifices to like a witch or a devil, however you want to see that type of a situation. Again, very dark. And I had a great time with this one. I gave this one 4 stars, and it was 392 pages. Prompt number 10, it was to read one of the book club picks. And for this one, I went with The Housewitch by Delemhach. This was actually the January selection for the Tilted Kettle Book Club. And I have yet to pick up February, and I don't know if I will, only because I'm running out of time for February, and there's a bunch of other books I want to read. But this was for January. I'm so glad I picked this up. I gave this one 5 stars. This is, I would say, cozy fantasy. I've never read a cozy fantasy before, but with the way that people have described that genre, with it being a cozy fantasy, this hits the nail on the head. You have a cat named Kraken. There's a couple of chapters you get from the cat's perspective. Most of them are from Finn, who is a witch. He's considered a domestic house witch, so he can protect his home and those that are in it. He knows like what types of food will make certain people sick, and just basically by looking at them or being near them, and what will help heal their stomachache or dizziness or whatever. So he knows what to do to help them. He leaves his home and goes to work in the kitchen of the royal family. So he's the royal cook, the royal chef, and it just goes from there. So definite cozy fantasy, and 461 pages. I wanted to get to the second book in this series, but unfortunately running out of time. It's another situation, just running out of time, but I will be continuing on with this series. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So The Housewitch by Delemhach. And if I remember right, I think Delemhach is from Canada. I found that out and found that to be pretty cool. I like finding out about the authors just this little bit. I'm born and raised in Canada. So, yeah. All right. The last 2 prompts. Number 11 is to read a book from a new to you indie author. For this one, I did an ebook, so I will insert the image. And I read Gluttony by Kira Roman. This is book number 1 in, I'm going to pull it up on Goodreads. It is part of a series, and the books are actually written by different authors. So, and these are retellings as well. So Gluttony is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. I'm trying to get the series name. Sinners fairy tale retelling. I was going like Saints and Sinners retelling, but no, it's just the Sinners fairy tale retelling. So it is sexually explicit. Do please be aware of that. You have Scarlet. They call her Red on occasion. You have a stalker. You have a hostage situation. Kind of 2 different hostage situations in this one. Her neighbors, Scarlet's neighbors, she lives with her grandma when she's little, and it starts out with her being like 5 or 6, and then up until her early 20s, like being 20 or 21 in the book, something like that, but early 20s. And then her next door neighbors are Wolf and Hunter. They are brothers. You do have child abuse, physical, emotional, and neglect. So please be aware of that. Scarlet is basically obsessed with Wolf and Hunter. She wants them all to herself. Okay. And they are kind of obsessed with her in a way as well. She is more willing to flirt. They are more reserved when it comes to putting themselves out there to enter any sort of a relationship with each other. So she'll flirt. They kind of hold back a bit more. Again, it is sexually explicit. There are at least 3 open door. There are 3. One with the Jack. Okay, yeah, there's 3. You also have a split personality. I'm not going to say who has a split personality. I will say that the other personality, who is the protector in this situation, obviously it comes about due to severe and extreme trauma. The alternate personality's name is Jack. So you're getting POVs from Scarlet, and this is multiple POVs. You get POVs from Scarlet, Hunter, Jack, and Wolf, as well as Garth is the other person. You have corrupt law enforcement in this as well. And yeah, so I'm going to let you discover more about that because it's 149 pages of fast-moving, awesome retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. Just an adult version and a steamy sinner version as well. I had a great time. I gave this one 5 stars, and I do have the next one on my Kindle, and I think I actually want to try to get a physical copy. I'm going to have to look into that because this was just awesome. Anyway, book number 2, I think is, I'm just pulling up Goodreads right now. I think book number 2 in this series is going to be a retelling of Cinderella. Yes. And that one is Sloth. And then, so there's 6 books in this series. So Gluttony was Little Red Riding Hood. The next one is Sloth, which is a Cinderella. And then there's Wrath, which is book 3, which is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. And these are by different authors. So Kira Roman did the first one, and then it's different authors for the rest of them. Book number 4 is Greed, which is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. Number 5 is Pride, which is, I don't know. And then there's also Lust, which is a retelling of The Golden Bird. I have no idea what that one is. I've never heard of that. Number 5 doesn't say. Oh, here we go. It says it on the cover. A dark retelling of Rapunzel. Ooh, that's a spicy cover. Okay. Yeah. I liked the writing enough. I'm thinking I would like to collect this series. Anyway, so yeah, 5 stars, 149 pages. The last prompt was to read a book from a new to you author. So this could be indie or whatever, not self or indie, but you know what I mean, traditionally published. Could be a traditionally published author. For this one, I went with Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. Now, I did a review for this book, and I did insert an edited portion. Nat Cassidy goes by he, him pronouns, because it does say he, him in the about the author, and I kept saying she. I think I only did it a couple of times, but regardless, this is written by Nat Cassidy, so I am sorry I got the pronouns wrong, but sometimes that happens, unfortunately. So yeah, but Nestlings, this is a horror, takes place in New York. I gave this one 4 stars, 283 pages. This had the creep factor that I loved. This had bugs. It had unexplained situations where you don't know if it's paranormal or if someone's mind is shattering type of a thing, where they're doing something but don't know that they're doing it type of a thing. So this definitely had the creep factor that I like in a lot of horror books. It did go there on occasion with some of the gore, with a little bit of gore. Not too bad on the gore. I would have liked to have seen more, but it still was pretty good. And the level of it was understandable with the type of story that was being told, especially where there are children involved. That is another thing that adds to the creep factor. Whenever there's children and dolls, that just ups the creep factor for me. You also have disability rep, as there is, I'm not going to say what happened, but something happens to one of the main characters in this, because you alternate between the wife's point of view, the husband's point of view, someone that works at the hotel. So there's a couple of different POVs that you're following. One of the wife's friends, who happens to be a physical therapist, but you do have disability rep. Something happens to one of the characters where they are basically paralyzed from the waist down type of a situation. So you do, and they're in a wheelchair a lot, so you have that representation in there. But I gave this 4 stars, 283 pages. It was good, and I look forward to reading more of Nat's work. So that's 12 books, 12 prompts completed, and that is a total of 3,450 pages. It took me a little under 54, but I did round up to 54 days. It could have been closer to like 51 days, 52, but I did round up to 54 days. So in 54 days, it took 63.88, so 64 pages per day to complete this readathon. I have 0 for this readathon for these 12 prompts. 0 stars, 0 1 stars, 1 2-star, 1 3-star, 4 4-stars, and 6 5-star reads. Pretty dang good. So that's a total of 51 stars given, divided by 12 prompts. My average star rating for this readathon is 4.25. Let me know. Did you participate in Passing the Time, hosted by the Tilted Kettle Book Club? If I can, I will leave the link to the Discord channel in the description box so you can check it out if you would like. And yeah, let me know, have you read any of these books or books from any of these authors? Talk to me in the comment section below. And until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I'll talk to you later.